Greetings, YouTube. This is Remarkable Republican here once again to bring you the truth with a truth-flavored bias. I've recently been rewatching the old G.I. Joe cartoon from the 1980s. It's been a while since I've seen it, and I've got to say, I apparently did not understand this when I was a kid, because it turns out rather than being a show about America's great military, instead it's actually a show promoting perversion. The supposed good guys, the G.I. Joes, are stand-ins for liberal values. And if anything, what I am getting from the show is that Cobra are the good guys. And that's going to play out because what we're going to do is a whole series on the characters of G.I. Joe. We'll be talking about the original characters as they were portrayed in the 1980s cartoon. We'll start off with the character I used to think was a great hero, and that'd be Snake Eyes. In rewatching it, what I realize is that he really doesn't look that much like a ninja, and he certainly doesn't act like a ninja. He looks more like a diver than a ninja, but what he looks more like than a diver is a gimp. So we're talking about a character in a kid's show who's a gimp hanging out with a guy from the Village People. I'm not saying they're gay, but I don't really have to. Just look at them. So what we'll do is talk about all of the levels of perversion with Snake Eyes, and talk about how his backstory doesn't actually make sense, how they did try to cover it up at the last minute and did so in a very unconvincing fashion. But we'll talk about how we meet this guy in the first few episodes of Season 1 of G.I. Joe, and how this establishes that he is in fact the gimp of G.I. Joe. We learn everything that we need to know about Snake Eyes and Shipwreck in the first few episodes. There's a multi-part opener, and as a part of that, what we see is that G.I. Joe is trying to foil a big plot by Cobra. One of the missions that the two men go on together is to infiltrate a nightclub looking for information. But the way that they go in there brings a lot of attention to themselves, and we see that the bouncer will very much try to reject them. Now, is he rejecting them because they're bringing pets with them? Well, that would be the surface reason. But really, it's the strange dynamic of a guy showing half his chest and then a guy with him wearing a gimp suit. So this was the 80s. There were not too many open homosexual couples trying to go in the nightclubs at the time, at least not, straight nightclubs. So that was weird. And in order to get in, Shipwreck had to use both a bribe and also threaten to beat the guy's ass. And of course, Shipwreck's a big guy, so that's a pretty credible threat. So they get in. They have their pets, which again, like that's major couples energy, bringing your pets everywhere, especially gay couples or old couples. Like this is, very much not what you would expect of two military-age men, even military-age men who are straight. So the cartoon is clearly trying to tell us something with that. So there's a lot of built-in implication. Then they are cornered by Cobra. So the featured performer at this club, a flapper named Satin, will rescue them. So you see she's got the short hair and the skirt and all that, and she does lounge music. So she's on their side. She helps to rescue them by taking them back to her dressing room and then taking them in her van. And clearly the dynamic that they have socially is kind of like when a woman has gay friends. And when she sort of allows herself to be seen by them in ways that she would not allow a man she found to be sexually viable to see her. So she escapes with these men, and then as part of their need to infiltrate a Cobra HQ, she has them dress up as band members. Of course, Shipwreck gets to be the saxophone player who's just some guy wearing a suit, but Snake Eyes will choose to dress up as a woman. And apparently he's a convincing woman with his figure that he shows off and with his moves. And then his pet, the dog, also dresses up like a woman. So both Snake Eyes and his dog are transvestites in this scene. So that tells you a lot about what they're up to and also what Snake Eyes' relationship is with Shipwreck. Shipwreck is the dominant partner. He is the pitcher and Snake Eyes is the catcher. And one wonders if it's implied that there's a similar relationship between the parrot who belongs to Shipwreck and the dog of Snake Eyes. But the show doesn't really go into that because that would be bestiality and that'd probably be something that would actually attract the interest of the censors and the network and not get put on the air. But they got away with a lot here. And then, of course, at the end of this scene, what happens is that Shipwreck will try to chase Satin as she's driving away after she's done her mission, and he's still interested in her, and then Snake Eyes will chase him down and act in a way that's very jealous, and it clearly has some couples energy. It's kind of like if like a woman catches her boyfriend staring at another woman's ass. So it's that kind of thing. The energy is very much there, and it's pretty obvious. There also is at least one other gay couple in these first few episodes we'll have to talk about, and that one's also a couple that's interracial. We'll talk about them later, though. Anyway, the other thing to note about Snake Eyes we'll get to in just a minute. So let's talk about his origin that they go into later in the show. The other big problem with Snake Eyes, of course, is the man's name. The name Snake Eyes refers to a snake. The enemy in the show is called Cobra. So if this guy had eyes like a snake, or he was the Cobra ninja or Cobra diver, then his name would make sense. But because he's on the G.I. Joe team, calling him Snake Eyes seems crazy. So why is he called Snake Eyes? Well, a snake as an animal is the most penile animal that there is. And so by calling this guy Snake Eyes, it's bringing attention to the fact that he is an inherently sexualized character. It's also worth mentioning that one nickname for the penis is the one-eyed snake. And so this is all supposed to be a coded way to tell people, especially older kids who might be watching it or their parents, but really imprinting it on kids that this man is a gimp and that his only purpose in G.I. Joe is pleasuring other males within that organization. Obviously, that can't stand forever. As they kept doing more backstory, they had to figure out a way to not talk about this guy's time in gay strip clubs or making gay porn or whatever it is that he did in his spare time. So they had to come up with a backstory to make him tragic. And so they came up with a really ridiculous comic book story where he got badly wounded in a mission, lost his voice, and also had his face disfigured. And that's why he started wearing the gimp mask. And apparently since his accident, he hasn't revealed himself to his family again. So why would he be estranged from his family because he got injured helping them? That's crazy. Unless you realize the reason why he was ostracized by his family is because of his lifestyle. So his relationship with Shipwreck and his gimp daddy persona. The other thing too is apparently he only started doing this whole get up when he had these injuries. This is kind of like the equivalent, if we think about the logic of it, of saying that when your dad is diagnosed with diabetes, you should expect him to be a leather daddy by the end of the week. So if he's diagnosed on Monday, by Friday he'll have a full leather daddy outfit. It's just insane. It's not how people work. So this story is clearly designed as a half-assed attempt to divert from what Snake Eyes really is, which is a gimp. Now, there is a true ninja in the show, but he doesn't work for G.I. Joe. He works for Cobra, and his name is Shadow. So with Shadow, he is a true ninja because he does some things that Snake Eyes doesn't. One, he's not a goofball who's a sidekick and a lover of an ambiguously gay sailor. He doesn't do comedy, but also Snake Eyes can talk. So Snake Eyes not only can act honorably, but he can also talk with honor. And indeed, he actually is an honorable character. He does not allow prisoners to be tortured or to suffocate. And he won't follow certain orders if they violate his principles. So that is true ninja stuff. Snake Eyes is not a ninja. They called him a ninja so that way they could sneak in a gimp. And that's all that was ever going on with that character. Every subsequent development of Snake Eyes is a lie. He was developed to be a gimp. So, those are my thoughts on Snake Eyes. Next time we'll most likely look at Shipwreck, and I'm also dedicated to finishing my Yakuza series, which I have not forgotten about. So that's it. Until next time, this has been Remarkable Republican bringing you the truth with a truth-flavored bias.